It all happened in less than 9 seconds. A quiet neighborhood street, a disabled boy trying to make it home, and an HOA woman whose cruelty had been boiling for months. She stepped forward, face twisted with rage, yelling about her rules, about her property, about how kids like him don't belong here. Then, the impact. The scream. The silence. Neighbors froze. A mother collapsed. And Karen? She smirked, actually smirked, thinking she had finally taught him a lesson. What she didn't know, the boy was still breathing. Barely. And she definitely didn't know who was sprinting toward the scene with violence in his eyes and Navy SEAL instincts firing like a storm. Because when a mother screams, when a child's body hits the pavement, when a father trained for war hears his son might be gone, justice arrives fast. And it arrives furious. Before we begin, tell me something real quick. Which city are you watching this video from? Drop your city in the comments right now. I love seeing how far these stories reach across the USA. And hey, before the story starts, make sure you've subscribed to the channel, because the story's coming next. They're going to shake you. Alright. Take a deep breath. Because this story doesn't start slow. It doesn't warm up. It doesn't ease into the pain. It begins exactly where the nightmare began, with a disabled boy named Eli trying to walk home without causing trouble to anyone, while an HOA Karen with a superiority complex circled the neighborhood like a hawk hunting something weaker than herself. Eli was quiet. Gentle. The kind of child who apologized even when something wasn't his fault. But that day, the day everything shattered, apologizing couldn't save him. He didn't even know he had stepped on the wrong side of the grass, a patch Karen claimed was her personal zone, even though it belonged to the community. She marched toward him like a storm in human form, ranting, throwing insults, calling him names no adult should ever say to a child. And before anyone could intervene, she pushed him. Hard. Hard enough to make him fall. Hard enough to stop his breath. Hard enough to make his mother scream louder than any siren. And that scream? That scream brought someone running. Someone Karen should never have messed with. A Navy SEAL father whose rage was about to reshape everything. The story begins, now. The neighborhood of Pinecrest Oaks looked peaceful that afternoon, sunlight sliding through tall oaks, kids riding scooters, sprinklers hitting lawns in soft arcs. It was the kind of place where people waved from their driveways, where dogs barked behind white picket fences, where the loudest thing on a normal day was a lawnmower. But on this day, everything felt tight, like the air itself was warning people to stay alert. Eli walked carefully along the sidewalk, his left leg brace clicking softly with each step. He had a backpack almost bigger than him, the straps digging into his shoulders. His disability made walking slower, harder, but he never complained. His mother always said he had a brave heart, the kind that survived storms without making noise about the rain. He kept his eyes on the ground, focusing on each controlled step. He had therapy that day, and his legs felt a little weak. Still, he pushed through. He always pushed through. That's when Karen saw him. Karen lived 3 houses down from the entrance, in the blue house she proudly called the first house everyone sees. She had a clipboard tucked under her arm, she always had a clipboard, and binoculars that hung from her neck like some kind of self-appointed neighborhood commander. To her, the HOA wasn't a community, it was her kingdom. And kids? Especially disabled kids? She treated them like walking inconveniences. Her eyes narrowed the moment she noticed Eli approaching the corner of her property. A 3-foot strip of grass separated the sidewalk from her front yard. A strip she believed she owned, even though the HOA papers very clearly said common area. But Karen didn't care what the HOA said. Karen believed what Karen believed. And today, she believed Eli was invading her space. She marched forward like a soldier heading into battle. Eli didn't even see her. He was adjusting his backpack, shifting the weight so it wouldn't strain his shoulder. By the time he lifted his head, she was already in front of him. "Stop!" she shrieked. Eli jumped, his heart pounding. I'm sorry, ma'am." "You're stepping on my grass," she barked, her voice echoing across the street. Eli looked down. His foot wasn't even touching the grass, it hovered inches above the concrete. But he panicked anyway. Kids like him, kids who had been bullied before, apologized quickly, even when they didn't understand why. "I didn't mean to. Don't talk back to me." Karen screamed, taking another step toward him. Her voice cracked like a whip. Neighbors peeked from windows. A dog stopped barking. A jogger slowed down, sensing something was wrong. "You kids think you can do whatever you want," Karen hissed. "You think your little disability gives you the right to break rules?" Eli swallowed hard. "I'm just trying to go home." Karen leaned in closer, her breath sharp and sour. "Not on my sidewalk." "It's the community sidewalk," Eli said softly. Karen's face snapped. "Excuse me?" Before he could react, before he could take a step back, before anyone could shout, "Stop!" Karen shoved him. Hard. Much harder than she intended. Much harder than anyone expected. Eli's balance was already delicate because of his leg brace. One wrong push was enough to send him toppling. His foot twisted. His leg gave way. His backpack swung forward. And then... crack. Eli hit the pavement headfirst. For a moment, the world froze. Then the scream came. A raw, high, terrified scream, but it didn't come from Eli. It came from his mother, Mia, who had just pulled up in her car around the corner. "Eli!" She bolted out before the engine even fully stopped, sprinting with the kind of fear only a mother knows. She dropped beside him, shaking, her hands trembling as she touched his cheeks. He wasn't moving. "Baby, look at me, Eli, look at mommy," she begged, voice cracking. No response. Just shallow breathing, slow, almost too slow. "Oh God, Mia whispered, brushing back his hair, tears falling onto his shirt. "Karen?" She stepped back, startled, then defensive. "It was his fault," she snapped coldly. "He shouldn't have walked here. Kids like him are always causing problems." Mia's eyes lifted. And the look she gave Karen could have set the whole street on fire. "You hurt my son," she whispered. "You hurt my baby." Karen folded her arms. "If he can't walk right, maybe he shouldn't be out here alone." A neighbor shouted, "Karen, what is wrong with you?" Another yelled, "Call 911." But Karen wasn't done. She stepped forward again. "And don't blame me. I barely touched him. He's just dramatic." Mia rose slowly to her feet, tears streaking her face. Her hands balled into fists. "You pushed him," she said, her voice trembling. "You pushed my disabled child." Karen scoffed. "People like you always exaggerate. And by the way, your son dropping on the pavement? That's property damage. You should be apologizing to me." That sentence echoed like gunfire. Mia's breathing grew sharp, panicked, breaking. She reached for her phone with shaking fingers. Not to call the police. Not to call the ambulance, someone else had already dialed. She called one number. Only one. The only number she knew would bring the kind of justice Karen didn't believe existed. A deep male voice picked up immediately. "Mia? I'm on base. What happened?" She took a breath that came out like a sob. "It's Eli." Silence. Then, "What happened?" Karen, she pushed him. "He hit the pavement. He's not waking up." There was no pause. No confusion. No hesitation. Just 6 words, 6 words that punched through the air like thunder. I'm coming. Don't let her leave. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't even breathe hard. But Mia knew that tone. It was the tone her husband used right before a mission. The tone that meant someone had crossed a line so violently, so unforgivably, there was no coming back. Mia stood straighter, wiping her tears. Karen glanced around, annoyed. Are we done? I don't have all day. Mia stared at her with a calmness so cold it could freeze fire. Oh, we're not done, she whispered. Because somewhere behind the houses, somewhere down the street, heavy boots began pounding the pavement. A Navy SEAL was coming home. And Karen had no idea the storm she had just unleashed. The sound came first. Heavy, fast, controlled footsteps striking the pavement with a rhythm that didn't match a normal run. It wasn't panicked. It wasn't clumsy. It wasn't the run of a neighbor rushing out of curiosity. It was the run of someone trained. Someone dangerous. Someone who could close distance like a shadow with a mission. Neighbors turned their heads toward the street. Mia wiped her tears again, her hands trembling, her heart beating with a strange mixture of fear and relief. Karen, oblivious as always, folded her arms and groaned. Oh great! Another parent ready to blame me. But this wasn't just another parent. A tall figure burst around the corner, broad shoulders, close-cut hair, black tactical shirt, boots hitting concrete with sharp purpose. His breathing was controlled, steady. His eyes locked instantly on one place. The small, unmoving body of his son lying on the pavement. It hit him like a bullet to the chest. In 2 seconds flat, he was on his knees beside Eli. Eli, buddy, hey, Daddy's here. His voice was soft, almost breaking. Eli's eyelids barely fluttered. Mia's voice cracked. He's not responding, she pushed him, he hit his head. He put one hand gently on Eli's cheek and lifted his head with tactical precision, scanning for trauma. Then he shifted his son's leg brace, checking swelling, checking breathing, checking responsiveness with trained motions no ordinary father would know. He wasn't just a Navy SEAL. He was a father fighting his own rising panic. Behind him, Karen rolled her eyes so dramatically it was almost comical. Oh please. He's faking it now because Mommy and Daddy showed up. Every neighbor turned to her. Faces twisted in disgust. 2 people gasped. One mother whispered, "What is wrong with her?" Mia's husband slowly looked up. And that moment shifted the planet. His eyes, usually warm, usually calm, had gone flat. Stone cold. Emotionless. The kind of eyes you only see on someone who has survived war zones and come out the other side carved from steel. Who did this? He asked quietly. Mia lifted a shaking finger. Her. His head turned toward Karen with execution-level precision. Karen didn't flinch, because she still didn't understand who she was talking to. She thought she was talking to a teacher, or a construction worker, or some ordinary man. She didn't understand she was facing a soldier with zero tolerance for cruelty, especially cruelty toward children. Especially his child. So she smiled that smug, sarcastic Karen smile and said, if he can't walk straight, maybe he should stay inside. The street went silent. One neighbor whispered, "Oh no, she just ended herself." Mia's husband rose to his feet slowly, every movement controlled, deliberate, measured. He didn't yell. He didn't lunge. He didn't charge. Instead, he stepped toward Karen with the kind of silent intensity that makes grown men step back without knowing why. But Karen didn't move. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "repeat what you just said." Karen scoffed. "I said maybe your son shouldn't be outside if he can't handle a simple." That's enough, he cut in. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that sits right before a storm breaks. Karen smirked, lifting her chin higher. Oh, what? You going to puff your chest at me? Scare me? I know my rights. He stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. You have no idea what fear is. That hit her differently. For the first time, Karen blinked. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't even shaking. He was controlled. Disciplined. Trained. And that scared her more than screaming ever could. MIA, he called over his shoulder, still staring at Karen. How hard did she push him? Hard enough that he hit the pavement head first, Mia choked out. Karen laughed, actually laughed. And again, not my fault. He shouldn't wobble around like a baby giraffe. Every neighbor froze. One man swore under his breath. Another woman whispered, she's sick. Mia's husband didn't move. But something inside him snapped. He leaned down, just enough to look Karen straight in the eyes. You put your hands on my son. So what? She snapped. He stepped on my grass. It's community grass, a neighbor shot back. It's my grass, Karen insisted. He tilted his head. Lady, that patch belongs to the HOA. Karen snorted. I am the HOA. No, a voice replied sharply. Everyone turned. It was Mr. Donovan, the actual HOA president, walking toward them with a folder in hand, having heard the shouting from his porch. Karen, he said bluntly, you have zero authority. You've been warned 3 times for harassment. This, he pointed at Eli, is assault. And now you're done. Karen's jaw dropped. You're taking their side? Wow. Typical. Always attacking me. Always ignoring the rules I'm trying to protect. Mr. Donovan stepped closer. Karen, I've tried to be patient. But today? You crossed a line even you can't talk your way out of. Karen spun toward him, face red. I did nothing wrong. Mia's husband finally spoke, voice low and deadly calm. You put your hands on a child. A disabled child, Mia added, shaking. Karen threw her arms up. Oh please. Disabled kids, non-disabled kids, they all whine when you discipline them. Gasps echoed. One teenage girl whispered, she's crazy. Karen wasn't done. She pointed directly at Eli, lying unconscious on the ground. That boy has been trouble since they moved here. And I'll say it again, if he can't walk, he should stay home. The father took one step forward, and Karen instinctively stepped back. That boy, he said softly, survived surgery at age 4. He survived therapy for years. He survived things you could never imagine. And you think you get to push him because you don't like the way he walks? Karen rolled her eyes. Boo-hoo. Not my problem. He leaned in. It is now. Karen's bravado cracked. Her throat bobbed. Her eyes flicked nervously toward the neighbors, then toward the street. Are you threatening me? She stuttered. No, he said firmly. I don't threaten people. I tell them the truth. What truth? She snapped back. That your life, he whispered, just changed. Before Karen could respond, sirens wailed in the distance. Rapid. Sharp. Getting closer. Police cars. Fire truck. Ambulance. The cavalry was coming. And Karen's face slowly drained of color as the reality finally hit her. This wasn't a boy who tripped. This wasn't just a push. This wasn't an argument. This was an assault on a disabled child, with witnesses. With an HOA president. With cameras on every porch. And with a Navy SEAL father standing over his unconscious son, ready to tear down the world for justice. And this? This was only the beginning. The sirens grew louder, echoing off mailboxes and garage doors as the police cruisers turned into Pinecrest Oaks. Red and blue lights splashed across the houses, washing over the pale faces of neighbors still standing frozen around the scene. Karen had always loved attention, but not this kind. Not lights. Not uniforms. Not accountability. She stiffened like a cornered animal, eyes darting from one cruiser to the next. Her bravado wavered with every passing second. The first police car stopped inches away. 2 officers stepped out, a tall female sergeant with a stern jawline and a younger officer scribbling notes even before she reached the sidewalk. Their eyes locked immediately on the boy. The female sergeant knelt beside Eli, assessing his breathing. Weak pulse. He needs to be transported. The younger officer turned to Mia's husband. Sir, step back. The sergeant raised a hand. Wait. Let him stay. He's holding the airway position correctly. She looked up, studying him with a strange flicker of recognition. Are you military? He nodded once. Navy SEAL. Her shoulders eased. Then you know what you're doing. Karen's jaw dropped open like she'd swallowed a hornet. He's military. The sergeant didn't even look at her. But Mia's husband did. Caught in that cold, steady stare, Karen took another step backward. 2 paramedics rushed over next, dropping their bags, gently sliding an oxygen mask onto Eli's face. Pulse slow but stable enough for transport, one murmured. Possible concussion. Possible leg fracture. Let's move. Mia wiped her face, tears steady but silent. The moment the stretcher arrived, she stepped aside with trembling hands. Her husband whispered, I'll ride with him. You stay with him, she whispered back, voice cracking. Karen threw her hands up. Oh come on. He's being dramatic again. There's no way that tiny push. The sergeant's head snapped toward her. Ma'am, I'm going to advise you not to speak right now. Karen scoffed, I have every right to speak. This is still America. The sergeant cut her off, voice sharp and icy. You're talking about a child who's unconscious. And you're obstructing an emergency response, the younger officer added. Karen blinked. Obstructing? Me? He stepped on my property. Mr. Donovan, the HOA president, nearly exploded. Karen. It's common property. Karen's lips trembled with fury. No. No, you all are twisting things. That boy, he always pretends to be hurt just to get attention. I've seen him limping around for years. Mia covered her mouth, her breath breaking with a sound that pierced the entire street. Her husband turned his head slowly, so slowly it made several neighbors step back for him. That limp, he said, stepping closer to Karen, is because his muscles were cut open twice before he turned 6. The sergeant's eyes widened slightly. Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He stepped closer. That limp is because he spent years in hospital beds learning to walk again. Karen's chest rose and fell faster. That limp, he continued, voice a low storm, is because he fought to be able to stand. To take steps. To run. To play. And you pushed him because you didn't like where his foot landed. Karen swallowed hard. I didn't mean. Don't lie, Mia whispered softly. You've wanted to hurt him for months. And suddenly, the entire neighborhood shifted. 2 neighbors stepped forward, not just physically, but emotionally. A woman from across the street raised her hand. Officer, Karen threatened my daughter last month over sidewalk chalk. A man added, she yelled at my autistic nephew for walking too slow by her driveway. Another neighbor spoke up, face red with anger. She told my little boy he was ugly and ruined the neighborhood's aesthetic. The sergeant's eyebrows rose. The younger officer's pen scratched faster. Karen screamed, "Liars. All of you. You people have been making things up about me for years." "Karen," Mr. Donovan said, exasperated, "there are videos." Karen froze. "What?" He lifted his phone. And played a clip. Karen's face. Karen's voice. Karen screaming at a 6-year-old girl to stop breathing so loud. Karen threatening to fine a man for taking too long to unload groceries. Karen yelling at an elderly woman for walking her dog too close to the property line. Karen's face drained of all color. You can't use that. That's illegal. You can't record people without permission." The sergeant stepped closer. "Ma'am, in a public or community space, recording is legal." But, Karen stuttered. The younger officer stepped forward. "Multiple witnesses say you pushed the child. And the HOA president has confirmed harassment complaints." Karen's breathing grew rapid, her eyes darting around, her mind scrambling for any escape. Then she snapped. "This is a setup," she screamed. "You're all against me. I'm calling my lawyer. You can't do this." Her voice wasn't powerful anymore. It was shrill. Cracking. Desperate. The sergeant looked at her calmly. "Ma'am, please place your hands where I can see them." Karen froze. What? Given the statements and the child's condition, the sergeant said slowly, "You are being detained for questioning." "Detained?" Karen screeched. "I did nothing wrong." "You put your hands on a disabled child," the sergeant said. "You better arrest her," a neighbor shouted. "Lock her up," another yelled. "Murderer," someone whispered under their breath. Karen shook her head vigorously. No. I didn't kill anyone. He's fine. He's just pretending." Mia's husband finally spoke. He stopped breathing for 4 seconds. Karen's lips parted. Her knees buckled. The color drained from her face completely. What? She whispered. Mia cupped her hand over her mouth again. "Yes," she cried. He didn't breathe, he." The paramedics lifted Eli onto the stretcher, securing straps quickly, oxygen mask pumping. "Let's move." Mia leaned over her son. "Baby, mommy's right here." The younger officer suddenly spoke sharply, "Don't let her leave the area." 2 officers stepped behind Karen like shadows closing in. Karen began trembling. No, this isn't happening, this isn't." But it was. She looked around frantically, at the neighbors glaring at her, at the officers watching her, at the parents hugging their children protectively, at the HOA president holding files stacked with complaints, and finally, at the Navy SEAL father whose silence was louder than any shout. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt him." For the first time ever, Karen's voice wasn't arrogant. It was small. Weak. Afraid. But it didn't matter. Because the ambulance doors slammed shut. And a Navy SEAL climbed in beside his son. Karen watched it all happen with a sinking realization. This wasn't over. This wasn't going away. This wasn't something she could argue, deny, or twist. Consequences were here. And justice was following close behind. The ambulance sped through the streets with the urgency of a breaking heart. Inside, the world shrank into a narrow, desperate tunnel of beeping monitors, oxygen flow, and a father watching every breath his son struggled to take. Mia held Eli's hand, gently brushing her thumb over his knuckles. Her tears were silent now, she had cried herself empty. Beside her, the Navy SEAL father, Liam, sat with the posture of a soldier but the eyes of a terrified parent. His mind wasn't in the ambulance, it was replaying everything. The push. The fall. The moment Eli's chest stopped moving. The seconds that felt like hours. He clenched his fists until his knuckles went white. "Come on, buddy," he whispered. "Stay with us." The paramedic checked Eli's vitals again. Pulse stabilizing. Breathing shallow but consistent. "He's a fighter." Liam nodded slowly. "He gets that from his mother." Mia leaned on him, voice trembling. I thought I lost him." "You didn't," he whispered. "Because we're here. And because he's stronger than she ever knew." The ambulance arrived at St. Helena Medical Center. The doors opened. Nurses and doctors swarmed, rolling the stretcher through sliding glass doors into bright, cold hallways. A nurse looked up at Mia. "We'll take him for scans immediately. Please stay close." Mia nodded, wiping her face. Liam followed beside the stretcher until they reached the restricted area. A doctor stepped in front of him. "Sir, you'll have to wait outside for now." Liam's jaw tightened. The soldier in him wanted to say no. But the father in him knew he had to trust them. "I'll be right out here," he whispered to Eli before the doors closed. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Chairs lined the walls, a TV on mute showed weather alerts no one cared about. Mia dropped into a chair and curled forward, hugging herself. Liam stood. He couldn't sit. Not while his son fought for consciousness. Not while the image of Karen's shove replayed in his skull like a nightmare on loop. His phone buzzed. It was Mr. Donovan, the HOA president. "HOA president, police are still here. Karen is detained. They're collecting statements. I have the videos ready. I'm on your side, Liam. Whatever you need." Liam typed slowly, "Thank you. Don't let her leave the neighborhood." Another buzz. This time from Officer Garcia, the sergeant from the scene. "Officer, we'll handle her. Focus on your son. We'll update you shortly." Liam's nostrils flared slightly. He appreciated the message, but handling her wasn't enough. Not for what she did. Not for how vulnerable Eli had been. He walked to the window, staring at the parking lot. At the sky turning from gold to navy blue. At Mia silently crying behind him. He replayed the moment Mia had called. Her voice. Her terror. Her brokenness. He pressed his hand to the cold glass. That was the moment the switch flipped in him. The moment the soldier woke up. But the father wanted justice, not vengeance. Or so he thought. A doctor finally emerged, flipping through a chart. Mia jumped up immediately. Liam turned like steel snapping into shape. "What's happening?" Mia asked breathlessly. The doctor spoke with measured calm. "Your son has a moderate concussion, but it does not appear to be life-threatening. No internal bleeding at this time. His leg brace cushioned part of the fall, but there's a possible hairline fracture in the tibia." Mia gasped, hand to her heart. Liam exhaled deeply for the first time since the accident. "But," the doctor continued gently, "he is still unconscious. We need to monitor him closely." "When will he wake up?" Mia asked. "It varies. Minutes. Hours. Sometimes a day." Liam swallowed hard. Time suddenly felt like the enemy. "Can we see him?" he asked. The doctor nodded. "One at a time, for now." Mia stepped forward first, trembling as the doctor guided her down the hallway. Liam waited. Not because he was calm. But because he needed a second to breathe before facing the sight of his son in a hospital bed. He sat, for the first time since it happened, slowly lowering himself into a chair. He stared at his hands. Hands that had carried wounded soldiers through gunfire. Hands that had pulled drowning teammates out of raging waves. Hands that had disarmed enemies in silent, deadly missions. But he hadn't been there to stop one woman from pushing his son. A normal man would have broken down. Liam didn't break. He hardened. Miles away, in the police station, Karen sat in an interrogation room, her hair frizzed, her eyes red, her breath shaky. She'd been yelling for 30 straight minutes. It was an accident. I didn't know he was that fragile. Kids fall all the time. This is ridiculous, you're treating me like a criminal. Sergeant Garcia sat across the table, unimpressed. Karen, you shoved a disabled child. Multiple witnesses saw it. You caused injuries. Karen slammed her hands on the table. Stop calling him disabled. That's discriminatory. Why is he special but I'm the one in handcuffs? Officer Garcia leaned in. Because you assaulted him. Karen scoffed. I barely touched him. He just toppled over like a domino. How is that my fault? Blame his parents. They raised a weak kid. Garcia closed her notebook. We're done for now. The charges will be determined after the hospital update. When Garcia left, Karen finally broke. Real fear surged in her chest. What if he doesn't wake up, she whispered to herself. Even Karen wasn't heartless enough to say the word forming in her mind. What if she had? What if her shove had? She covered her mouth with her trembling hand. No. No. She didn't mean to. She didn't want that. She wasn't a monster. Was she? A nurse approached Liam. You can go in now. He followed her through the hallway. Every step felt heavier. Every breath felt tighter. He entered the room, and the world shifted again. There, on the hospital bed, covered in soft white blankets, lay Eli. So small. So fragile. So still. A bandage on his forehead. A brace adjusted around his leg. An oxygen tube beneath his nose. A monitor beeping steadily, a sound both comforting and terrifying. Liam approached slowly, his footsteps whisper-soft. He sat beside the bed and placed a hand on Eli's small fingers. Hey, champ, he whispered. Dad's here. The words cracked in his throat. A single tear slid down his cheek, silent, controlled, but heavy with everything he'd been holding back. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have been there. I should have protected you. He bowed his head. You didn't deserve this. You didn't deserve any of it. Mia walked in quietly, standing behind him with her hand on his shoulder. He knows you're here, she whispered. Liam nodded. But inside, he made a promise. A promise that would determine everything that came next. A promise that turned his heart into steel. When he wakes up, Liam whispered, squeezing his son's hand gently. I swear, Karen will never hurt anyone again. The father was hurting. But the seal? The seal was waking up. Night settled over St. Helena Medical Center like a heavy blanket, dim hallway lights, quiet footsteps, distant beeping of machines echoing through the building. The world outside continued as normal, cars passed, streetlights flickered, families ate dinner, life kept moving. But inside that hospital room, time didn't move at all. Liam sat by Eli's bedside, elbows on his knees, fingers interlocked, staring at his son the way someone stares at the only thing that matters in the universe. Mia rested against his shoulder, her breathing slow but shaky, eyes red from hours of crying. The machines beeped steadily. The monitors flickered softly. And Eli remained still. Too still. Every rise and fall of his chest was a fragile miracle. Liam leaned closer, brushing hair away from his son's forehead. Come on, buddy, fight a little more. Mia's voice cracked. Do you think he can hear us? Yes, Liam said instantly. He always hears us. It wasn't logic speaking, it was hope. Hope was sometimes the only thing parents had. A soft knock tapped the door. Liam looked up sharply, too sharply. Sergeant Garcia stepped inside, hat in hand, face serious. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, sorry to come so late. But I have updates. Liam straightened, the SEAL posture returning like armor sliding into place. Go ahead, he said quietly. Garcia nodded. We have multiple witness statements. 3 video angles. And the HOA president provided documentation on Karen's previous incidents. Mia looked down. Is she arrested? She's detained, Garcia replied. Formal charges are being prepared. What charges? Liam asked. Garcia opened her notebook. Assault on a minor. Negligence resulting in bodily harm. Harassment of a disabled individual. She paused. And depending on your son's condition, possibly more. Mia swallowed, heart tightening. Liam's jaw clenched. She pushed him deliberately. She denies that, Garcia said. But the videos disagree. And what happens next? Mia whispered. We wait for the doctor's full report. Once we have that, we'll file the official charges. Liam leaned back slowly. And she won't walk free? Garcia shook her head. Not this time. This wasn't yelling about grass. This was violence. Mia looked relieved, for a moment. Garcia hesitated. Something in her face shifted, like she had more to say, something heavier. Mr. Carter. I looked up your records. Mia tensed. Is that necessary? Garcia held up a hand. I'm not judging. I'm acknowledging. She looked at Liam with respect, deep, genuine respect. You've risked your life for this country. You've saved people none of us ever will. And you know how to handle rage. But this? Your son? Your family? Garcia stepped closer. Don't throw your life away for a woman like Karen. The room froze. Liam stared at her. Because the truth was this. He had thought about it. About going to that interrogation room. About closing the door behind him. About confronting Karen not as an officer of the law, but as a father who almost lost his child. Liam exhaled slowly. I hear you. Garcia nodded. I'll update you again soon. Hang in there. As she left the room, her footsteps fading down the hall, Mia squeezed Liam's arm. You weren't thinking of doing something stupid, right? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he said, I'm thinking about keeping our son safe. Mia's voice cracked. He is safe. Now he is. Liam looked back at Eli. No. Not until she's out of our lives forever. Karen sat alone again, arms wrapped around her body, rocking slightly in the hard metal chair. Her hair was a mess, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and her breathing was uneven. The room felt like it was shrinking. Time passed differently here. Minutes stretched. Shadows moved. Silence grew heavy. She whispered to herself, it wasn't my fault, it wasn't my fault, he stepped wrong, he stepped wrong. But the words didn't feel true anymore. Because the videos weren't lying. The neighbors weren't lying. Her own memory wasn't lying. She had pushed him. She didn't mean to push that hard, but she had pushed. And now the child was unconscious. Her chest tightened. What if he didn't wake up? What if her shove had caused damage she never intended? What if the charges turned worse? No, she whispered. I'm not a criminal. I'm not. But her voice wavered more with each repetition. The door opened. Karen jerked upright. It wasn't Garcia. It wasn't the young officer. It was a tall man in plain clothes with an authoritative aura. "The district attorney will review your case in the morning," he said. Karen blinked. "Review my case?" "Yes." I won't go to jail, right?" she asked, voice breaking. The man looked at her without pity. "Karen, based on the evidence? You should start preparing for the possibility." Her face collapsed. Tears spilled. Her voice turned into a desperate whimper. "I didn't mean to hurt him. But intent didn't erase impact." And somewhere deep inside, even if she didn't admit it, Karen knew this wasn't her first time being cruel. It was just the first time she'd gone too far. Hours passed. The hospital lights dimmed further as night deepened. Nurses rotated. Patients slept. The building quieted. Mia eventually drifted off against Liam's shoulder, exhaustion claiming her. Liam stayed awake. He couldn't sleep. Not with Eli lying there between two worlds. He reached out, gently holding his son's hand again. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, "Dad's here. We're waiting. No rush, but come back to us, okay?" The monitor beeped steadily. Then, a twitch. Liam froze. He leaned closer. Eli's fingers moved. Just a little. Just enough. "Eli?" Liam breathed. Mia stirred. "What?" Eli's eyelids fluttered. A soft sound, barely audible, escaped his lips. Dad." Mia gasped. She covered her mouth with both hands, tears pouring instantly. Liam's heart exploded in relief so intense he almost collapsed. "Hey, champ," he whispered, brushing Eli's hair. "I'm right here." Eli blinked slowly. "It hurts." "We know," Mia cried softly, "but you're safe. You're safe now." A nurse rushed in, alerted by the sudden change in the monitors. "He's waking up," Mia exclaimed. The nurse smiled warmly. "That's a very good sign. Let him adjust slowly." Eli looked around the room, confused but conscious. "Mom. Dad," he whispered. Mia sobbed. Liam hugged her shoulders, both of them trembling with gratitude. Their son was awake. Alive. Breathing. Hope flooded the room like sunlight through a storm cloud. But as Liam looked at his son's bruised forehead, his bandaged leg, his frightened eyes, a new emotion rose inside him. Not relief. Not joy. Vengeance. Not illegal violence. Not revenge outside the law. But something deeper. Something determined. He had seen men like Karen before, people who believed they were untouchable, people who preyed on the weak, people who hid behind rules until they broke them. He touched Eli's hand gently. "Rest now," he whispered. "Dad's got the rest." Because tonight, his son had fought his way back. Tomorrow? Justice would begin. Morning light spilled through the hospital window, soft and golden, warming the room where Eli slept peacefully. His breathing had steadied. His heartbeat was strong. His color returned little by little. Mia sat beside him, stroking his hair as if afraid he'd disappear if she stopped. Liam stood near the window, not relaxed, not tense, but focused. The storm inside him had settled into something quieter. Something colder. Something with purpose. Eli was awake. Eli was safe. Now came the reckoning. A soft knock broke the silence. Sergeant Garcia entered, holding a clipboard and a grim expression. "Good morning," she said gently. "How's our fighter doing?" Mia smiled weakly. "Better. He woke up twice this morning." "That's incredible news," Garcia said. Kids are resilient. Her tone shifted as she turned to Liam. We need to talk. Privately. Mia's eyes flickered nervously. Liam kissed her forehead. I'll be right outside. He followed Garcia to the hallway. Nurses passed by, pushing carts and holding charts, but the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Garcia exhaled. We have everything we need to move forward. Videos, statements, medical reports, and your son waking up strengthens the assault case. Liam nodded. Good. But, Garcia continued carefully, Karen is claiming she acted in self-defense, saying Eli was charging at her aggressively. Liam's jaw tightened instantly. His shoulders squared. His eyes sharpened. Charging, he repeated. Garcia nodded reluctantly. She said he lunged at her. Liam closed his eyes for a moment, just long enough to process the absurdity, then opened them slowly. My son needs help climbing stairs, he said calmly. He couldn't charge at a person if he wanted to. Garcia nodded. We know. The footage disproves her story completely. Then why mention it? Because she's building her defense, Garcia replied. Her lawyer wants to paint her as a strict rule enforcer, not a violent aggressor. Liam stepped closer, voice low. She pushed a disabled child. Hard. Garcia met his gaze steadily. And she will face the consequences. But I need you to understand something, this will go to court. She's fighting the charges. Liam nodded slowly. Then I'll be there. Every second. Garcia softened. I know you're angry. Anyone would be. But stay smart. You're the father he needs, not the soldier they fear. Liam took a breath. I hear you. And Liam? Garcia said gently. Your son waking up might have saved you, too. He paused. What do you mean? If the worst had happened, she chose her words carefully. Men in your position sometimes do things they can't take back. Liam understood. He had been standing on that edge. And his son's eyes opening pulled him back from the cliff. Hours later, Mia and Eli were resting when a nurse informed them of something unexpected. Mr. Carter? The police would like you to participate in a controlled meeting. Liam frowned. A what? Karen requested it, the nurse whispered. She wants to speak to you. Mia's eyes flashed. Absolutely not. Liam, no. Liam touched her arm gently. If she wants to talk, it might help the case. But that wasn't the full truth. He wanted to see her. Not to scream. Not to threaten. But to look her in the eyes and let her see exactly what she had done. Garcia led him to a small conference room. And there she was. Karen. Not the powerful, loud, invincible Karen of yesterday. But a shaken, tired, broken version of herself. Thinner. Paler. Eyes swollen from crying all night. Her hands trembled on the table. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Liam didn't sit. He stood across from her, straight, silent, unshaken. Karen swallowed. I was frustrated. He stepped where he shouldn't. I thought he was being careless. I didn't realize how fragile. Liam cut her off sharply. One sentence. 5 words. Don't call my son fragile. Karen flinched as if slapped. Liam walked to the table slowly, placing both hands on the metal surface between them. You didn't see a child, he said softly. You saw a target. Karen's lips quivered. I didn't mean. You pushed him, Liam continued. Not because of rules. Not because of safety. Because of who he is. Because he's different. Because you could. Karen's breathing grew shaky. I made a mistake. No, Liam said. You made a choice. Silence fell. Cold. Heavy. Karen's tears spilled. Am I going to jail? That's not my decision, Liam replied. Karen wiped her face with shaking hands. Please. I don't want my life ruined. Liam straightened. His voice turned steel. You ruined your own life the second you put your hands on my son. Karen broke, truly broke. Her sobs were messy, uncontrolled, collapsing out of her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Liam didn't move. You don't owe me an apology, he said. You owe it to him. Karen's eyes widened. I can't face him. You will, Liam said. In court. And he walked out, leaving Karen in a room full of her own consequences. Back in the room, Eli was awake, eating a little applesauce with Mia's help. His smile was small but real. Dad, he whispered. Liam knelt beside the bed. Yeah, buddy? Are we going home? Liam smiled, softly, brokenly, gratefully. Soon. Very soon. Eli squeezed his hand. Did I do something wrong? Liam shook his head, eyes filling with tears he rarely let anyone see. No, son. You were perfect. You were brave. You were kind. And what happened had nothing to do with you. Eli blinked slowly. Is that lady gone? Liam kissed his forehead. She will be. Mia leaned in, wrapping both of them in a trembling hug. Their family was still standing. Still fighting. Still together. Some storms destroy everything in their path. Others reveal who stands strongest. This one did both. And justice, real justice, was finally moving. If this story touched you even a little. If it made you angry. If it made you feel something. Then drop a comment right now telling me what city you're watching from. And if you want more stories like this, stories with emotion, justice, suspense, and real heart, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next chapter. Because trust me, the next stories are even more powerful.